Back before my woodworking adventure started, my shop was just a garage. I hung our grilling tools right on the wall just inside the back door from the grill. Now, with sawdust and finishes around on a regular basis, we decided it was time for a new shop cabinet to hold the grill tools. I had a small pile of scrap wood lying around and thought this would be the perfect project to get rid of it. I generally like to use 3/4 inch plywood for my cabinets, but this was all 1/2 inch plywood and would have to do. I also wanted to maximize the amount of room I had in the cabinet, as I was confined on both sides of where it would be hung on the wall. Using my Kreg ACS, I quickly ripped the strips to size. The cabinet is going to be about 28 inches tall and 19 inches wide. For the back panel, I knew that I wanted to incorporate pegboard and hooks for hanging the tools, so I marked an offset on the board and slid it to the edge of the track. I then cut a dado 1/4 inch deep into the panel. I then slid the workpiece over the offset of the width of the pegboard and cut another dado groove. I was very happy with how easy this was with the track saw, and I could see my width adjustments easily to know that it was cutting where I wanted it to. After cutting all the dados to size, I then cross-cut the boards to the proper dimensions for the top, bottom, and sides. For joining the pieces, I pulled out the Kreg microblock from my K5 pocket hole system. This bit is smaller than the standard pocket hole bits and allows for use of materials down to 1/2 inch thick. This is a handy addition to have when working with smaller materials like this. So right about here, I knew that I had screwed up and drilled the pocket holes on the same side as the dado groove. This isn't a big deal, I just didn't want the holes visible on the inside of the cabinet. I fixed this off camera by cutting more dados on the other side. Next was the back panel, which was just basic pegboard. I marked it up and cut it to size on the ACS. For assembly, I simply applied glue to both ends of the top and bottom boards and used the 90-degree corner clamps to line everything up. I let the glue dry for a while prior to running the screws in. Another handy feature of these clamps is they allow for screw installation while they are still secured to the workpiece. At the last minute, I also added some edge banding to the edges of the box. I trimmed that with a flush trim bit and got to sanding. For the cabinet door, I used a piece of 3/4 inch plywood that I was going to use for another project, but ended up not needing it. I added edge banding to the outer edges of the door as well. I used painter's tape and my flat bench top to help keep one edge of the banding flush and in place. After the glue dries, I sanded the edges smooth. I used 2 concealed cabinet door hinges along with the Kreg cabinet hinge jig to drill the pockets for them. This is by far my favorite Kreg jig, as it gives you everything you need to mount hinges properly. This is a must if you plan to build any cabinets or add doors to any of your projects. Because I used 1/2 inch plywood for the box and 3/4 inch plywood for the door, I needed to offset the hinges about 1/4 inch inside of the cabinet box. I just added some scrap oak and glued it in place under where the hinges would mount. To mount the handle, I simply laid it out where I thought it would look the best. I then drilled the holes and then mounted it. I always use washers on the back of my handle hardware to prevent the heads of the screws from pulling into the material. Finally, it's time to spray some finish. I shot the entire cabinet with some satin polyacrylic in my Fuji Spray HVLP system, and it went on flawlessly. If you can swing for a sprayer, you will never want to go back to a brush and roller. This is a must for any enthusiast who wants to up their finishing or refinishing game. One thing that I thought of after the fact was a little dust prevention. My shop gets pretty dusty, and even though I'm putting the grill tools into a cabinet, I wanted to see if I could keep most of the dust out. I found this rubber gasket material at the local box store and thought it would be perfect to seal around the door and the cabinet gap. I cut the strip down the middle and stuck it on the entire perimeter of the box. Close the door, and it's an airtight seal. We'll see how this holds up over time, but I think it'll do pretty well. Now it's time to hang up the grill tools. This cabinet would be perfect for any kind of task, not just the grill tools. I wanted to share the basics of a quick one-day build and how I go about using scrap wood to make something work. If you have any questions about any products or things that you saw in today's video, please comment below. I'd like to thank Craig Tools for sponsoring this video and providing me with some of their tools and jigs for use in today's project. There will be links in the description below if you want to check them out. I'm Casey with CReeves Makes, and thanks for watching.